Here and Now, the program featuring the news and interests of the African American community. Here's your host, Sandra Bookman.
Coming up, one of the Exonerated Central Park 5, Kevin Richardson, inspiring youth with a new workshop designed to teach them their civil rights. And the director of the documentary From Preschool to Prison that examines the systemic failures that impact Black and brown students. That's all ahead on this half-hour edition of Here and Now. Kevin Richardson, one of the Exonerated Central Park 5, spent 7 years of his life behind bars for a crime he did not commit. He has found a way to turn that painful experience into a powerful force for positive change. His Courage, Perseverance, and Resilience workshop is designed to help young people of color navigate social challenges like over-policing, mass incarceration, and diminishing civil rights.
This scene right here, it's just hard over the years to look at. I have learned how to do that. This depicts what you know, in the park, the crime scene of what actually happened to the Central Park jogger. The thing is, myself and my brothers was nowhere near that. Even though I was innocent, I ran. Because when you see police during that time, you just run. The crowd ran, so I ran too. And what happened was that he arrested me and I had nowhere to go, so I jumped back into the park and I was tackled by him. And that's when I got hit with the helmet. There was no DNA evidence. There was a lot going on. These 3 letters, CPR, was also on police cars. It was courtesy, professionalism, and respect. Those 3 things wasn't obtained for us.
It is our pleasure to welcome Kevin Richardson. It is so nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
it's mutual.
Been too long.
Too long.
Kevin, we have you here, so I have to ask you, having gone through that experience with the criminal justice system, it changed you in ways you could not have imagined. So at this point, though, you are looking back on what occurred in your life. And I'm just curious as to how you view that experience now. On the one hand, it taught you so much, likely not the way you would have wanted to learn it. And on the other, I would think it must have you think sometimes, you know, what might have been had I not gone through that. How have you, I guess we all at some point put things in a box and decide how we're going to view them and characterize them. Is that too long of a question?
No, it's not, actually. Sometimes what I've been through has helped me navigate my life now, in this present day. And I use the tools to think about what I've been through. It helps me stay grounded and move through this process that we're dealing with now. And it's a tough process, but it's necessary. Mm-hmm.
Because this is a case that all of our lives, all the people in the studio now, we know about it. The 5 of you were accused of brutally beating a woman in Central Park. The crime you didn't commit. The confessions coerced, and there was a real suspect out there that apparently wasn't even looked at. Fast forward, that person finally was actually charged with the crime. You guys were exonerated. Even a lawsuit later, you won. But it doesn't really make up for all that you lost and all that you went through. Do you ever think about that moment that you got grabbed from the park and the next thing you know, it was just your whole life was turned upside down?
I think about that still to this day. And we're talking about 30 plus years later. Just that quick, your life can change. And we always think about what if. Mm-hmm. And during that time, I think about what if I didn't go to prison. Things could have changed, but I use that as a tool now to move on from that process, which you never forget what you've been through. But that helps me reshape what's going on now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe, I think it's probably also one of the reasons you're doing this particular workshop is so important, because you are somebody who has actually walked it like you are talking it now. So was that the idea here when you came up with this workshop?
Yes, sometimes when people do certain things, they might not have experience with it. And, you know, it's lived experience. So when I connect to these students or these kids, they look at someone that actually been through it.
Yeah.
And I become more approachable to them, and I can relate to them still at this age.
Yeah.
I still could connect with them.
If you say you're old, I'm going to slap you. Because you're not. So the workshop, Courage, Perseverance, and Resilience workshop. And I would think that also the kids, once they hear some of your backstory, they know that you know what you're talking about, and they actually listen, which is sometimes hard to get teenagers to do, because you know they know everything. Because I used to know everything when I was 15. And then I discovered I knew nothing.
Right.
I know you started it at your alma mater, correct?
Yes.
Why'd you make the decision to go back there first?
It's very important. Like, for this same reason, to show people that I can come from, you know, what I've been through, and look at me now.
Yeah.
Look at me as success. You know, and I think it's just so important to be relevant with these kids, because they need it.
Bronx Prep High School, I should say that's your alma mater. And what is the age range we're talking about, the kids that you're having these conversations with?
Well, I launched my first one with Bronx Prep. It was more towards seniors, but it goes from freshman to the senior years. So we're talking about from ages 14 all the way to 18, perhaps.
Okay.
So it's region that age bracket. Because I was 14 at the time, so that's definitely that age where we need to really express these things to them.
Yeah, and fill them with some usable knowledge. So how does the conversation start? Exactly what are you teaching them in these courses? Right,
so we deal with, we have different case studies, you know, and I'm so happy that I'm able to do this, you know, and give back in this way. And we start out with, it's a workshop, and it varies from case studies and showing what would you do if you get apprehended by police. And we have kind of a multiple choice. For instance, we'll do A, if you go into a store or bodega and cops apprehend you, A, would you run away? B, would you find someone else to be next to you? Or C, will you be, you know, a little aggressive? And we have to ask these things, because now we deal with kids that they're so strong in the way they feel now. And I'm just here to teach them that you could go about it a different way. Tips and letting you know that be very still, be respectful, because things could go the opposite way.
You know, one of the things that happened in your case, these coerced confessions, right? Is that something you deal with in these workshops in terms of having to talk to a law enforcement person?
Yeah, I deal with that, because, you know, I always go with the slogan that we have to unmute the uncomfortable. And we, you know, always express it to them, unmute the uncomfortable. Get into these situations where you're in, and to show how you can get out of it. Because when I was in that situation, I felt like I was stuck in mud. And I couldn't get out of it. So it's just like giving life back to them. Yeah,
and it was a situation that I don't know that you could have dreamed you would have been in that situation.
Correct.
So, and at 14 years old, would you have had the wherewithal, no matter when it happened, to have been able to have gotten yourself out of it?
You know, I think of myself as 14. I was just scratching the surface of life, curious, just trying to find things out. And, you know, now we deal with these kids that, like, they might think they know what they're doing, but when you put into that situation, we got to give them the tools to know your rights, to know your civil rights, because you really don't know until you're stuck in that situation what you might do. Yeah.
And, you know, as you teach these young people about the steps they should take now to keep themselves safe, to be respectful, and honestly, the objective for most parents is for you to make it home. That's what they want, for you to make it home okay. So it's probably even more important for them to know that their kids know how to react and behave if they are in an encounter with law enforcement. Do you remember, you know, what you were thinking when the police officers started telling you something that you really didn't know about it, you didn't know, but you found yourself in a position of being told to say something that you know, what was going through your mind?
Yeah. You know, I always think about that, right? Because I remember that time, it was such a blur. I often tell the kids that your mind is your most powerful tool, you know, and we must know our civil rights. And I often ask these kids a question that, do you know your rights? Surprisingly, a lot of the kids do not know. And, you know, one thing when you're getting apprehended, they'll tell you you have the right to remain silent. And with me, that was a blur. I did not follow the second sentence, which was anything you do will be held against you in the court of law.
Anything you say or do can be held against you in a court of law.
So when that was being said to me, I just said yes. I really didn't understand it.
At 14 and,
right.
you know, no prior experience with law enforcement. And when you're talking about kids this age, you always, I think about the parents' role. Are you telling kids to wait for your parents, or what? You know, what is the role parents play in this kind of situation? And is there an opportunity for you sometime to have conversations with parents?
You know, I think the parents should get these tools as well. Not everyone knows. You know, there's parents that's in that situation as well. They don't know the law, and you yourself and your kid will be stuck in the mud. So it's also important to express these to parents too, to give them the tools, because it's not just about kids, it's about all ages. But of course, I'm focused more on the kids, because that's my reach, to reach kids, because I see myself through them. I am them.
Yeah, you had that experience. And how do young people react to this conversation with you? I'm wondering, do they start off a little skeptical like they always do, or do you get the sense that what you're saying to them is sinking in?
You know, I've been blessed and been seasoned over the years to speak to kids, right? And I have this certain, I guess, stigma in a good way. The kids, when they see me, I'm very approachable. So I get them to be comfortable, and I often use eye contact. They let them. There's something about eye contact when you look at them directly in their eyes, and it's a sign of comfort that I got you. I'm protecting you. You know, because once you could get a kid's attention, you got them.
You can keep them.
You could keep them, and it's a blessing. After the workshop is done, we do Q&A, and the line is filled up with kids asking wonderful questions. And then they come out of their comfort zones.
Which means they've been listening.
Yes.
If they're asking questions. How satisfying is it for you? I know you're a dad of 2 now.
Yes.
How satisfying is it for you when you do one of these workshops, the kids are asking all these questions, and you get to walk out of there knowing that you've done what you were meant to do? Or
I always feel that I was put on this earth to do something like this. You know, when I was such a young age, I didn't know. Who knows at 14? But it's a sign of accomplishment. And, you know, and I'm just scratching the surface of these workshops. So it feels good, even to the fact when I go home, I talk to my teenager, my daughter, about it, and get feedback from her. She's a teenager. So it feels great to have that feeling that I'm inspiring people.
And doing something that truly matters.
Yes.
One last question before I let you go. You know, my mother always had a saying, you know, essentially, when something happens to you, maybe it was meant for bad, but somehow God turns it into good in your life. Do you ever feel like that about what happened to you as a teenager and what you're able to do now as an adult?
You know, my mom, she's from the South,
my
Virginia,
mom too.
And she always tell me, God, you know, he doesn't make mistakes. And when I was young, I often questioned that, why I was put in this situation. And my mom will always tell me that there's indeed light at the end of the tunnel. And, you know, at that age, I thought it was a cliche. But this is the truth. It's the absolute truth that over time, I've seen that light. And it was powerful that I could come through that light. And now what I'm doing today, not only inspiring people, but changing people's lives, that's a great feeling.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
When we come back, the powerful documentary that shines a spotlight on the so-called preschool to prison pipeline. Stay with us. If President Trump's campaign pledge to dismantle the Department of Education becomes a reality, experts are concerned that the drastic move would exacerbate existing inequities in marginalized communities. The documentary Preschool to Prison explores systemic failures that impact Black and brown students, pushing them into the criminal justice system. Take a look.
A 7-year-old boy arrested at school in Florida.
A 10-year-old boy with autism was handcuffed in his own school.
There should be no reason why you have 4 officers in a school for a 5 or 6-year-old that is having a temper tantrum.
Incarcerating children has become the new cash cow in this country.
The prison system is designed to keep people imprisoned, and because it's a business.
I got caught up with systematic oppression. I really didn't have a fair chance.
So when people say the system is broken, I said, no, it's not broken. It's doing exactly what it was designed to do.
Joining us today is Dr. Karen Baptiste, the producer and director of Preschool to Prison. So nice to meet you.
You too.
And so well done, because you call attention to an argument, a conversation that I think a lot of us have heard for years.
Yeah.
Now, you started out as an education, a special ed teacher, right?
Yes, in the South Bronx.
What did you see that made you kind of change or shift your focus?
Yeah, as a teacher, I saw an overrepresentation of black and brown boys being referred for special education. I had many students in my class that did not belong there. And I started to question, why are you here? And why is this student here? And I found myself asking that question way more than I should have if they were appropriately placed. Many of them were not appropriately placed. Some of my students absolutely needed special education services. Many did not. And so I started looking at the pattern and looked into why are there so many black and brown children, boys specifically, being referred for special education. And that's when I came across the school to prison pipeline. I was in my early 20s. I had no clue what the school to prison pipeline was. I didn't have an idea about what the referral process for special education was. And when I discovered this, it was gut-wrenching. And it made me realize that we have a serious problem in this country. You don't think about racism in school, right? You think about children are innocent. Why are we targeting children? And from that point, I realized everything went back to policy. I started digging into the policies, zero tolerance policies that actually uphold the school to prison pipeline. And that's a part of how children are being funneled. And of course, the black and brown children are targeted, and there's an overrepresentation of them when you see special education. You'll see a lot of them being referred for speech and language impairment, and that's for Hispanic students, right? And then we have our black students, and they get labeled with intellectual disability, right? So years ago when I was in the classroom, it was labeled as mental retardation, and they changed it to intellectual disability, but those are the two most popular.
So, and talk to us, you point this out so well in your documentary with the help of several experts. And people who have found themselves in this situation, and it's impacted their entire lives. So, Dr. Baptiste, explain to us, if you would, exactly what you mean when you say school to prison pipeline.
Yes. So we actually emphasize preschool to prison because the terminology has been school to prison pipeline. And what I found is that we're not getting enough people outraged enough about sending children from school to prison. I found that when I go into places and I say school to prison pipeline, I've actually heard people say, well, some of these kids need to be in jail. Some of them need to be arrested. Because when you say school to prison, immediately most people will visualize a tall child.
Yeah, older kids.
Older kids. When you say preschool to prison, you get a different visual, right? You start picturing somebody that's about 3 feet tall, and then you stop and you say, wait, that can't be. There's no way we're sending children at that age. So the other piece as to why we talk about preschool to prison is that the human brain develops the fastest between ages 0 to 3 more than any other time in our life. And what we find is that more than half of America's babies are living in or near poverty, which then puts them at a higher risk for actually impeding their development. And research showed that children by the age of 2, right, those toddlers that are living in low-income households are actually already 6 months behind in their language processing skills. So this is why we focus on preschool.
You have a consultancy.
Yes.
You've put together this documentary, which is very well done, easy to understand, and if you aren't shocked when you watch it, then something's wrong with you.
I agree.
I'm sorry, because it is shocking. How are you trying to help schools shift the way they're doing some of these things?
Yeah, so we have a multi-prong approach. So we provide executive leadership coaching to district leaders, school leaders, and even educators around how to really step back and assess their culture. And are you healing or harming children, right? And when you start looking at the culture that has been created in schools, and we talk about historically where the school-to-prison pipeline has stemmed from, many schools actually created their policy conduct codes based on the penal system. So when I work with them, I get them to start looking at what are the policies are in place. Are we disciplining children or are we punishing children? There's two differences there, right? And people think it's discipline, but oftentimes it's punishment. So when we look at minor infractions, we have kids being put out of school for using a cell phone, being out of uniform, right? The 6-year-old girl I highlight in my documentary for throwing a tantrum, she was actually arrested and had her mugshot taken, right? These are the types of things that we're focused on, is non-criminal activity, because I know the big conversation now and argument is we need police in schools. We're not talking about criminal activity here. We're talking about these children who are being ushered from school to prison for non-criminal offenses, right? So that's one arm of the piece where we get them to self-reflect and then dismantle inequitable policies. The other piece is community engagement. So we do a lot of community engagement where we teach people how to advocate. We teach people to understand what the policies are, what the laws are. School board meetings are open. So we tell parents, like, know what your rights are. When you send your child to school and you sign off on that discipline policy book, you don't even know what you're signing. Some people aren't reading it. So we educate the public on that, and obviously we're working with different orgs to help get some bills pushed and passed to support educators and students.
We've been doing it this way for a long time.
Yes.
How open are educators to shifting that model, shifting the way they look at how they've been doing things and actually trying to do it a different way?
Yes, so our approach actually has gotten a lot of people to open their mindset through the mindset coaching that we do around thinking about what kind of society we're going to do. We get people to look beyond today, right? Because this becomes intergenerational. If we continue to incarcerate our babies for minor infractions, non-criminal activity, we have to think about this isn't just an impact on that individual child, but it's an impact on the family, not just on the family, but the community, not just on community, but on society. So when we get people to start thinking broadly about what kind of world do you want your child to live in, we get people to really sit back and think through them, like, wow, we just, this is just how things have been done, and they just went with the flow, not necessarily that's what they believe. And so we take that approach, and people actually have been very open. Everywhere we've gone, we've been asked to come back, so that's a good sign.
That is an excellent sign.
Yeah, and me having been a special ed teacher, I know what it is that teachers want. We don't want to waste anyone's time, and so we know how to get into the hearing of educators and really help get them into action.
And are schools, is there a cost for schools to work with you on this program?
Yes, there is a cost. Most times, especially if we're doing like community engagement events, we have done events without a charge as well, especially because we're really advocating and teaching people how to advocate. Whenever we do coaching and workshops, because we do have workshops on dismantling the preschool to prison pipeline. So often when schools partner with us, they ask to screen a documentary for their staff and even nonprofit organizations. We work a lot with nonprofit organizations, but then following that, we do the workshop on how to dismantle the pipeline, because we can't just leave people with watching the film with no actionable steps. We want people to leave out with awareness, and so we focus on the awareness through the film, and then we do action, which is the workshops, and then we do healing, which is through our therapist that you saw in the documentary. And so we focus on those three areas of awareness, action, and healing, because we want people to leave out feeling full and complete, but also feeling motivated to actually go out and be able to make a difference.
Yeah, there's something that they actually can do. It is eye-opening. Very well done.
Thank you.
Preschooltoprison.com. That is the website to find out more about the consultancy, how, if you're interested, you can become involved with the program.
Yes.
And then there's Preschool to Prison, is it documentary.com?
Yeah, so we have two separate sites because we didn't want to overwhelm or confuse people. So Preschool to Prison with the number 2, that's the consultancy site. And then there's Preschool to Prison Documentaries.com, and the word 2 is actually spelled out T-O. And so that's where people can go and get the link. It's streaming on Amazon Prime, so they can go to the documentary website and see our awards and the links and everything that they want to know about the documentary.
And it is worth taking a look at. It is important work.
It is.
Very nice to meet you.
You too.
And I got a feeling it
Thank you.
won't be the last time we talk.
It won't.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll be right back. Thank you for joining us on Here and Now. If you missed any portion of today's show, you can watch at abc7ny.com/hereandnow or listen to our podcast wherever you subscribe. If you'd like to comment or share your story, email us at wabc.com or follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and X. I'm Sandra Bookman. Enjoy the rest of your day.